Hi, my name's Kim Jaye and I'm severely sight impaired. I'm also a chef and I volunteer for the leading charity RNIV amongst others. A couple of years ago, in a sheer moment of boredom when COVID had started, I decided that I would film myself cooking one of my dishes and putting it out on social media. And to my surprise, it went down really well. So much so that 2 years on, I'm now up to my 50th video. A question I'm often asked is, why do you do what you do? Why do you spend all this time and effort in showing other people how to do accessible cooking? But today I'm going to tell you and talk to you about it. When I was 30 years old, I had four small children, all under the age of 10. Extremely busy. I was writing, working in the media, had businesses, didn't even have time to think. And one Saturday morning, just before Christmas, I woke up with a severe headache and noticed that there was this great big black hole in the centre of my vision, and I felt awful. And over a matter of a few hours, this hole got bigger and bigger and left me with over 90% sight loss. And I was rushed into a hospital where over a period of 2 years, they gave me massive amounts of steroids. My vision slowly returned over that period, but was left very damaged. I have no central vision in my left eye, and my right eye, the bottom half, is missing. I have glaucoma, macular degeneration, secondary glaucoma, Charles Bonnet syndrome, a lot of things wrong with my eyes. At the time when it happened, I can't explain how frightening it was to suddenly go from being sighted to having barely anything, to be able to do anything. The slightest sound, the slightest movement would send my heart racing. And for about 2 months after it happened, I just couldn't function. Finally, I gave myself a kick up the backside and thought, I've got to live, I've got to survive, I've got to have a life. So I went into the kitchen to prepare my children their lunch. Started to make a cheese sandwich and some cordial and gave it to my children, and my daughter turned round and said, "Mummy, should the bread be green?" The cordial that I had made for them was made out of oil, not orange cordial. And all of a sudden it hit me. It was like a wave of despair and anger and frustration. And I, for the first time, burst into tears because I realised what I had lost. I'd lost seeing my children's faces. I lost the ability to be able to read, to go out on my own, to cook a simple meal. And I sat and I cried and cried. And as I sat there crying, I could hear this sound, and it got louder and it got louder. And finally, I stopped crying and tried to focus on this sound. And I realised that it was a scream inside my head. I was just screaming and screaming for all the things that I'd lost. Over time, it became apparent that my sight loss was permanent, and people around me changed. They no longer saw me, Kim, a person. They saw my sight loss, my disabilities, my illness. I stopped being a person. I felt as if I stopped being a person. And I couldn't go on like that. It's not in my nature. So I picked up the courage and decided that I would face the world on my terms. I looked for support and services, but back then there wasn't that much available, and there wasn't the knowledge that's out there that there is now. But I learnt Moncane training. I learnt how to use accessible technology by going to the college. And slowly, bit by bit, I taught myself how to cook. Now I'm Indian, and the Indian culture, it revolves around food. You go to an Indian family's house, you take one step over the threshold and they throw food at you. Half an hour in the house and you're in a food coma. So food for me was an important first step to getting my life back. So I went into the kitchen and I taught myself how to cook. I did this by starting off by picking various ingredients, smelling them, getting used to the smell, to the taste, to the textures, learning how different ingredients and meat, the texture changes when you cook, learning how to sort of blend different ingredients and get the most exciting dishes. And at the same time, I developed techniques to help me around the kitchen, where to put my knives, to find where a pan is, to keep myself safe. I built all that up by myself, and it was difficult. Don't get me wrong, it was difficult because I did it on my own. But I did do it. And I decided that I wanted to do something with what I've learned. I didn't want to stay at home and be my disability. I wanted to be Kim. So I went to various colleges and universities and asked if they would put me into their courses for food and hygiene and safety, and they all said no. You're severely sight impaired. It's a health and safety risk. And I thought, I went to so many places, and eventually I managed to find 2 or 3 who were willing to listen to me and who were willing to work with me and support me. And I got my certificates. I even learned how to, I got my alcoholic license, so opened a restaurant and became a chef. Unfortunately, the marriage broke down and the restaurant had to close, and I was left once again feeling isolated on my own with my young children, scared of everything, barely going out. And after a while, a leading charity RNIB got in touch and I began to volunteer for them. And with their help and support, I built myself up again. I regained my confidence and we started teaching accessible cooking, talking about the various equipment and devices and technology that is out there. And I got my life back. And I began to feel me, Kim, and then I had a purpose and I was a productive member of society. So why do I do what I do? Why do I spend all my time and hours helping others, demonstrating, talking about equipment? It's simple, really. It's so that nobody has to go through what I went through 25 years ago. That awful despair and the feeling that you're on your own and you can't cope and you're drowning. Because trust me, there is help out there. There is support out there. Go and find it. Go get your life back. Do whatever it is that makes you happy. Doesn't have to be cooking. Climb a mountain, abseil, whatever you want, but do it. Don't let life go past you. Don't let others label you. You are you. And that's why I do these videos.